right, welcome everybody. Just want to thank everybody for taking the time to check out my new show here. This Real Time with Zach. This is a pilot episode here. We're gonna see how this works, how this takes off, and see if I can get a feel for doing a little podcast here. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Zach Rehl. I am a January 6th former hostage. I was one of the 5 Proud Boys charged with seditious conspiracy, and I have since been commuted by President Trump on January 20th, 2025. So I had 10 years left on my sentence, and I served almost 4. And first of all, grateful to be out of here. But now it's time to get down to business. So I have a lot of things that I went through over these last few years, and a lot of that has to do with weaponized justice system. A lot of that has to do with just things I experienced in the justice system, as well as being censored for my political views. And part of what the point of this show is really to really help educate people as much as I can. Not trying to say that like I'm the smartest person in the world or whatnot, but I've been very active in politics for almost a decade now. I've been an activist in the streets of Philadelphia. I did a lot of rallies in support of President Trump, and supported the local law enforcement, as well as the Constitution in general. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I fought for, at least signed a black check on my life for this country, and I continued fighting for this country in the name of activism and for as well as President Trump. And I ended up at one point going down January 6th, just like close to 1 million people. And obviously, after the Biden regime got in, they started persecuting a lot of us January 6th defendants for basically what should have been no more than misdemeanor crimes, myself included, and my co-defendants as well. None of us should have been charged with anything that would have given us any sort of sentence over 10 years, but we got sentences ranging from 10 years to 22 years. The man Enrique Tarrio, who got 22 years, wasn't even there, wasn't even at the Capitol, So we always joke about him because he's technically a J6er, but he wasn't there, so it's like whatever. It just shows you how biased the whole justice system is, but that's only scratching the surface. And one of the things I wanted to be able to talk about in the future is these shows is really what goes on in the justice system that people don't know. A lot of people don't know how brutal and ruthless our federal justice system is. They overcharge and oversentence pretty much everybody, and a lot of the crimes and sentences are a lot of them are politically motivated. Not as politically motivated as the January 6th cases were. And, we're going to see a lot more of that. Congress is going to be doing some investigations at some point. I'm going to be trying to do what I can to work with Congress if I can. I'm going to be continuing to do what I can to maybe do these shows, point out some of the injustices that we went through as January 6th defendants, as well as Proud Boy defendants. And I mean, the five seditious 5. I have a special guest today that was there along with us every step of the way. She's a real good friend of mine. I actually met her because of the trial, and she's written tons of articles about our trial, as well as many other January 6th cases and whatnot. Very in tune with politics, just like me. We get along great in that aspect, and that's why I wanted to have her on the show first, because like I said, I don't know, like when you want to talk about the what we went through trial, it's easy for me to sit here and say this happened, that happened, this happened, this happened, that happened. But to have somebody on the outside looking in as a professional journalist and looks at all sorts of different criminal trials and different cases all the time, I think it will really help put it into perspective to bring our first guest on here to help explain some of these things. And I think some of you already know her. I think he's going to like this show here today. And bear with me a little bit. It's my first podcast ever, so if there's some little technical difficulties, I'll figure it out. I'll get better each time. Don't hit me on it too much, but I think it's going to be a great show, and I hope to be keep this going on the long term, because it's really important that Americans are educated on a lot of the issues that we have in our country, and I couldn't be happier to continue offering my services as an American to help people in this country. So enough of my rambling. Let's get our first guest to the very first show of Real Time with Zach, Alicia Powe.
Hi, Zach. It's absolutely an honor to be on your first show, and it's an honor to see you a free American again after all that you've endured. And we both know I've had a close-up look at it more than I ever intended to, So thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem. And hey, thanks for coming on being the first guest on my show. Obviously, a lot of people might be a little iffy being the first one on the show, but we've known each other for a long time at this point, and I didn't have a doubt in my mind that me and you we'd have a good show together. So I thank you for coming on. So.
Well, I don't know where you want to begin, but yes, I can talk about how I started covering your trial and this political persecution situation. Take it away, Zach.
Not everybody watching this may not know who you are. So tell everybody a little about yourself. Where are you from? What do you what do you do for a living? Why were you at her trial? Things of that nature.
Well, first of all, my name is Alicia Powe, and I've been a journalist since around 2011. But my work in the political arena started at like the age of 19. I'm from New York, the bastion, as they say, liberal bastion, Democrats. Everybody I knew was a Democrat. Growing up, I'd ask people close to me, what's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat? And then over and over and over, I got the same answer, which is, well, Republicans are for the rich white people and Democrats are for the poor people and the minorities, and keeping it that way. That's not even really a coherent answer, but that's what I started to accept. And as like a high school student, everyone in the high school would go and protest President Bush, go protest a war. And I was in high school in 9/11, living just miles away from where it all happened. And I started to hate Bush. And, I can't recap 20 years too fast. But by the time I was 19, it's usually a tragedy that kind of wakes people up to dig for more. One of my friends was killed. He was a hip hop rapper, Zulu Nation member, break dancer. And
Sorry
he was
for your
in loss, doing like the Zulu Nation handshake, and got mistaken for a Crip, he got shot by a gay member that was in the Bloods. And then in New York, people, they used to be like, what's that color? Like if you're on the train or something, and then the Bloods would like slice people. That was an epidemic in Manhattan that was happening back when I was in high school or in New York. So anyway, that my friend getting killed in high school led me to ask God questions. Like, because you're 18, 17 years old. I was 18 years old at the time. And I just felt very alone. I was just questioning religion. I was just questioning politics and straight up just asking God answers. And so skip ahead, I started studying American history. Like I met someone who challenged my political views because I had gone to left-wing protests. The first time I ever came to DC was people burning the American flag everywhere. It was very dark. And anytime you go to one of these Democrat protests, it is like very, like you feel like you're in a zombie pit. Like it's like,
yeah. I mean, that's it. That's if you ever see an American flag at all as it is. But when you do, they're usually burning it. It's crazy. But
so then I was like, this is not stopping the war. What are we doing? This is like, and I started changing this anarchist mindset that I guess you could say was inherited. And studying it. Like on my Friday nights, I'd be watching history documentaries, reading history books, and really looking for the truth And this led me to find out like the history of the two parties. I studied the history of the two parties on my own. I had taken a year off from college and studied it. And I saw that throughout American history, the Democrat Party had never done anything for civil rights. Every step of the way, every chapter, it had morphed into something different after the Civil War, but it was a civil war where they were like lynching carpetbagger nigger Republicans, excuse my language, that's Civil War language. And then, you know, after that, the Democrats just didn't stop. What happened, though, was this fusion of Marxist socialism into the Black community. And then again, keep going forward, Obama was president. We can all see, even if you're a Democrat, what Obama's about today. So that's how I started this path in politics. In my college, I was like the only different thinking person, and I would raise my hand and basically it was a spar between me, the professors, and me every day. And I became that Republican girl in school. I remember when George W. Bush won his second term, I was wearing like an American flag shirt with sequins on it on the train, and everybody was in mourning, wearing like sad. And, you know, you develop a different confidence when you don't hate your country, like, and you have more confidence in yourself in general, because the default programming is to be weak, victim, and get fat and sick and poor. That's what this whole matrix, and again, it's not that the Republican Party is so great, but if you look at like right now, but if you look at legislative history throughout America, that's what you'll find. And everyone accepts what's spoon-fed to them by the powers that be and the corporate media and academia, which has all been infiltrated by, call it globalists, call it Democrat. I say it's an evil agenda, war between good and evil. And you've got to really fight for your mental diet and even our food. Like, so I don't want to get sidetracked, Zach, but that's how I started in politics. And that's why I became a journalist. I went from being in the ghetto to being the first White House intern from John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I commend you for actually doing research and reading history. I love history, and I think more people need to really study up on history, to be honest, because you could tell a lot of these liberals, they go to these colleges and they get degrees like liberal arts or whatever, but they don't really take the important classes very serious. You know, they'll spend a lot of time reading philosophy, Karl Marx, this, that, and everything like that, but they won't read history. You know, and they get brainwashed by like what Marxism is. And the other thing with Marxism too is a lot of people think that it's just a new phenomenon in America, this Marxism thing. But it's actually dated back for quite a while in the United States. The U.S. has been basically being infiltrated by Marxist ideology since as early as I read up was the William McKinley murder. Who was the president of the United States. He was murdered by a Marxist. There was a wave back in the late 1800s where basically the communist revolution started sweeping through Europe, and I think they killed I don't know if it was a king or a president or something of France, but they wiped out all the czars in Russia. Obviously, that's when Russia actually was taken over by communists. But then there was also another communist who killed a president of the United States, and that put a lot of fear into a lot of the politicians at the time, because we're talking like late 1800s, early 1900s. Being a politician wasn't a career back then. You know, it was just something you were serving your country as, you know, as a public servant. You know, so it's one of the reasons why these Congress people have so much time off nowadays. It's because it dates back to the early days when they were farmers and everything. You know, they're business people. You know, they had to tend to the farms, so they come in certain times of the year and they vote on things, and then they'd go back home. You know, but as time progressed and Congress became a job, whether Senate or House of Representatives, those little vacations, essentially, as you would say, stayed in place. But regardless, over time, you mentioned how the Democrat Party always says that they're for the minority community and this and that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I used to hear all the time, like, well, what's the difference? I used to say the same thing. What's the difference between the two parties? Oh, well, the Democrats are for the workers. They're for blue collars and minorities and yada, yada, yada. And no, they're not. No, they're not. And historically speaking, a lot of people don't know this, but for about 100 years, the Democrats controlled Congress. Different presidents changed hands over that time, but it wasn't until 1994 when Congress first broke from being controlled by Democrats for literally 80 years straight, and a Republican House or Senate took over and won, and it's been swinging back and forth ever since. But prior to that, with the Supreme Court was also controlled by Democrats for about 80 years. It wasn't until 2018 or 2020, don't quote me, it was one of those 2 years. It was the first time in over 80 years where a Republican Supreme Court took over. And basically what I'm getting through on that is the Democrats sit here and say that they care so much about minorities and they care so much about, criminal justice reform, this, that. They sit there and they shine this shiny object to the public and say, hey, we're going to defund the police. And, people who aren't involved with politics or involved with how the government works, they might get excited over that. And I mean, they don't know better.
I'll jump in, Zach. Yeah, defund the police. But all of a sudden they were proponents of the police on January 6th. And talk about it. Now they love the police after what they did just 6 months later, just like bots.
Right.
The TV said hate the police, so they go out and riot. The police said love the FBI. Now they love the FBI and they're sedition hunting. Right.
Well, yeah, and that's absolute hypocrisy right there, and that highlights that for sure. But what I was also getting at, that was the next point I was going to make. But what I was also getting at was a lot of the people, minorities who spend a lot of time in jail, they blame the Republicans for it, but the Republicans actually didn't have power. Like, all the laws that are on the books in the feds were put in place by the Democrats. I mean, they literally control.
One point I was trying to really, it's worth writing like a thesis paper. It's hard to mash it into an article, and it's still worth writing because first you had the Justice Department back in the 90s. I don't know back in 1994, the Bill Clinton administration. Legislation, the Clinton crime bill, basically the Biden-sponsored Clinton crime bill, to target Black and Hispanic men. They're super predators. You can hear Hillary Clinton say in footage that's been deleted from the internet. And they try to say, oh, well, it's Republicans. No, the DOJ weaponized against the Black community. Surprise. I mean, it's the same. We can go back. I can skip around history and see is like, okay, housing projects and food stamps, that's a new form of segregation from the Democrat Party instituted by LBJ, who says, I'm going to have those Enners voting Democrat for the next 200 years with these social programs that's meant to keep you here and nowhere else in this sort of systemic slavery that ends up with the highest incarceration rate by more legislation, like you said, passed by Democrats. And they're out calling Trump racist when he passed the First Step Act. The best thing that could have happened right before we take office to reform the criminal justice system. The Bureau of Prisons, there's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the last 100 years, Zach.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Yeah, and you know what, the First Step Act is, it's a good point. Like, when I was first in prison, I went to FDC Philly, so I was in general population. And I had a lot of Black guys that come up to me and they would ask me like, oh, what do you like Trump for? He's racist, this, that. I'm like, no, he's not. He's not racist. I mean, like, if he was racist, why would he put in the First Step Act? Like, he literally, helped promote that and put that in place so that way it could help basically everybody going through the justice system, but primarily the Black community. He wanted to help the Black community with the struggles with the justice system. And they're like, the number one thing they always say, and I'll tell you why they were saying this too. The number one thing I always heard was, man, ain't no one ever gone home on the First Step Act early. And I mean, no one ever went home early. So basically what the First Step Act is, for people that aren't, they don't know, it's basically a program that helps rehabilitate prisoners while they're in the federal system. The federal system gives out more time than any other justice system in the whole country. So they're basically trying to reduce the time people spend in the federal system by giving them programs that help prevent them from coming back. You don't want people to get out of prison and end up coming right back. I mean, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Help them get on their feet so when they walk out the door, they can go be productive members of society again. Well, after the bill got signed in 2018, it was signed in December of 2018. Democrats took over Congress January 2019, and they stonewalled all the funding and anything for the First Step Act for the first 2 years or 3 years, really. So by the time I got to prison or jail at FDC Philly for being locked up for the Capitol riot, it was a good 6 months. People were still complaining about how they weren't getting their their programs, and nobody was going home early. But basically the funding ended up getting kicked in because of, I believe it might have been because of a Republican bill that got pushed through the previous year, and it just kicked in afterwards. And then all of a sudden, people started going home. They started getting their programs, and they started going home a few months early. And overnight, the entire prison population just basically became Trump supporters. And that was amazing to see. But I mean, again, it's a prime example. You have a Republican who did something for the Black community, and the Democrats had every opportunity in the world to fully support this bill because they're supposedly for the minority community, and they stonewalled funding so that way people wouldn't benefit from this bill. I mean, it's sick. It's crazy. Can't make it up.
I think covering your trial, which led to me covering this whole situation with January 6th, we take it for granted. All of our freedoms. You think we're in the freest country on earth, I used to always say. No, we're not. There's hell on earth right here, right down the road, wherever your local prison, wherever your local jail is. You walk right past this other dimension of time where it's like demonic activity happening and torture for petty things. All of a sudden, people who are selling marijuana, they would, like, people I know in New York, it's a drug culture in New York. They'd get like 5 years in prison, 20 years for prison if they had 2 ounces, whatever it is. Now you see people, you go next to the White House and it reeks of marijuana. It's legal. So all the time, people lost in their lives over these drug laws, right? And again, that's a way to target the Black community, and they're targeting radical right-wing extremists and constantly creating race wars. And still, this is all to institute slavery. The Democrats love their slaves. I mean, they fought a war over it, and it's not a coincidence that shortly after the war, when they took power in Congress, they instituted a bunch of laws on the books to where they can literally lock up any American they want. And it's disgusting, really, and that's why, I've talked to so many people in prison and tried to talk to so many people about this to show them the light. And actually, a lot of the people in prison knew this already. But the thing is, the thing is the Republicans for the longest time, they just ignored the Black community. They just assumed that they could never get their vote, and that was that. They were like, we can't get their vote. I mean, it is what it is. I think that they're infiltrated too. And in fact, when we talk about communism again, which opened my eyes, I don't know, 15 years ago, however long it's been, was the 45 declared goals of communists to take over America, a document that was circulated on the Senate floor in 1963. And literally everything you could check off the box, they've accomplished. And I wish we could pull it up on the screen, but the Republican Party's infiltrated. I mean, I think I was talking to Congressman Steve King, former Congressman Steve King, and he was telling about, if you get certain deals, you get money, you want to keep your seat, then you don't talk about this issue, period. Or they call it the congressional caucuses, and they can kick you off of your committee chairs. They can plant stories on you. The Republican Party has been the most pathetic thing of lip service over the past 4 years, whether it's COVID or January 6th. And I'll also have to say, not to disparage conservative media, But why was I the only, like, and you can attest to this, Zach, because it felt like a responsibility to get up early in the morning and drive to the Barry E. Pretty Man Courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why the heck is it called Pretty Man Courthouse? Like I used to say, are you going to go make the men look pretty?
I hated
Like,
that name.
did you see, Zach, many conservative media at your courthouse? Because I've been in conservative media for a long time. I know where all their offices are, which is like 5-10 minutes away, and then none of them showed up. And then the GOP members of Congress, you could see the Capitol building from the courthouse. Mm-hmm. Go take a lunch break and look out the window, and they're sitting there and doing nothing. They run away. When you go and ask them, most of them ran away when you went to go and press them about this issue. Will you come to the Proud Boys trial? Will you testify? Will you do something? They were like running to the elevator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? You know, I mean, this is like a probably a new concept to some people, and I think this is why the left calls everybody on the right Nazis, for example. For the longest time, there's been this push and pull. There's basically three power struggles in America from what I've learned. There's being an American, supporting the Constitution, and then there's people that support communism, and then there's some people that support like some loose version of like fascism or something. And I think that's like one of the reasons why for so long that like you have these Republicans and Democrats that seem like they're two sides of the same coin, and all of a sudden you have President Trump coming in who supports the Constitution more than any president in the last 100 years. And both sides, not all of both sides, obviously there's a lot of Republicans that support him, but both sides of these political aisles are so adamantly against him. I mean, literally, has there ever been a president in the United States who the first, 100 things he's did has been challenged in court? Like, I mean, think about, for example, the fact that Don't Ask, Don't Tell, for example, was at one point put in place, wasn't challenged. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was then taken out, wasn't challenged. But now, because they don't want to give free sex change surgeries to service people, I mean, that's being challenged. They don't want to look at like fund certain programs that don't have anything to do with the military. That's being challenged. I mean, let's go on with just the what Pete Hegseth's department over there. But you get the gist of it. Like everything this man does is being challenged. So I mean, like,
well, think about it. We were this close to the end of America. If President Trump didn't miraculously like dodge that bullet, or like we're like a centimeter away from it all being gone. And I know I work so with every fiber to not only like materialize the pardons with the heart as much hard work or good work one little 0.001 person can do, but like the things we put up with over the past 4 years, there's enough for this whole nation to go and get therapy and PTSD, like a therapy, because the COVID, like, and how many people died from COVID under this tyrannical system that the Biden administration was pushing on us.
Well, we'll never actually know.
They're like literally pushing transgenderism on our children. Priority number one. Like, get erected from a plane if you dare take a sip too long. Like and then what they did to you guys, I think you January 6th defendants were like just bearing the brunt of it all, because you're dealing with the COVID mandate tyranny in the jail for coughing the wrong way, walking around. Zach, that's where it all started. Okay, from my periphery covering the COVID, we had whistleblowers calling me all over from the country, like, oh, I'm a nurse and I'm going to lose my job because I don't want to give these people the experimental mRNA gene editing technology, right? I had like 20 nurses calling, and they're like, oh, and the doctors, oh, they're killing people with remdesivir in the hospital and intubators. And one whistleblower wanted to smuggle ivermectin. He was smuggling ivermectin and real medicine to people in the hospital, lost their medical licenses. Weaponize the Hippocratic Oath basically against real doctors. And then I see the January 6th stuff. I'm like, what the hell are those people doing that day? Like, what the hell? Like, look at all of those people around a few police officers. Like, right? And then actually, though, when you actually look at the footage, which I didn't really see the most important part of it to the end of your trial, you just see pure straight up police brutality, terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
And then you look at, oh, what did Zach do that day?
Mhm.
Just walking around, laughing, giving an okay sign, taking selfies, dodging bullets. And that's
Pretty
it.
much. Yeah.
Getting
Yeah,
hit with
15
rubber
years.
bullets.
15 years for that, you know, like it's crazy. Like 15 years, not a shred of evidence that says anything about us trying to plot a seditious conspiracy. And like the craziest thing about that, and you were probably there, you've seen that when they were given when the Judge Kelly was given the jury instructions, and he said that they don't have to have actually talked about it. They didn't have to actually planned it. All they had to do, if you think they had an understanding to commit seditious conspiracy, then you can find them guilty of seditious conspiracy. And I always go with this, like, okay, fine. Let's say you thought we had this understanding, whatever. They said that we came up with this understanding on the spot the moment everybody ran on the Capitol grounds. And it was like, okay, well, where does Enrique come in on this? Like, the man wasn't there. How did he get roped in on this agreement that happened on the spot, apparently? And like, it makes zero sense to me at all. Like, it's crazy how you can come up with a complex plan to overthrow the government without ever talking about it, ever. Like, no one's ever done that before. Like,
well, also 1512 is never a 1512 obstruction of official proceeding. If you went in the building, you'll get 20 years. You're punishable by a crime by 20 years. Oh, we all know the Supreme Court threw that out, as they should.
Mm-hmm.
What does it have to do with evidence tampering, documents tampering? Like when Clinton, like, Sandy Berger, a Clinton administration official, later after the Clinton administration went in the White House archives, stuffed documents down his pants and socks that proved Bill Clinton could have captured Osama bin Laden. Like, he walked out and he didn't get prosecuted. That's what 1512 is for, but not just roaming, just trespassing. I mean,
the statute
talk about
title,
it ad infinitum, the ridiculousness.
The title of the statute is tampering with a witness, document, or informant. You know, so a riot is not the same as whatever it is. You know, whatever you want to call it, riot, whatever. That is not tampering with a witness, document, or informant. Like, that came out after the Enron scandal because they were dumping thousands and thousands and thousands of documents and, you know, basically trying to bribe witnesses and whatnot. And they came out with that statute to counter that because there's a lot of things that the Enron people did that they weren't able to charge them with because there wasn't a law for it. So they came out with that to ensure something like Enron didn't happen again. Not in case like a protest that goes sideways at the Capitol. Like that's not what that statute is for. In fact, there is laws on the books for if people enter the Capitol and they're not supposed to be there. It's called parading in the Capitol or picketing in the Capitol. And that's usually what the Democrats get when they do exactly the same thing, which they did.
And the Democrats if the left-wing activists, the Antifa Satanists, even BLM, they get put in a kettle. They call it a kettle for them, not jail. Then they get $1 million rewarded. Like if the police push them and they sue, all the Democrat lawyers come to their rescue because they are Democrat astroturf anyway. Yeah. And there's this juxtaposition of the law where like they can get away with it, they can get millions of dollars, and you're getting 20 years. Yeah. Let me tell you a story. I'm sure you've remembered some of the protests over starting in 2020 and going on ever since. But one of the things that a lot of the protests that like Antifa likes to do is that they like to block highways. And they did that in Philadelphia. You're familiar with I-95. And I don't know if you're familiar with 676, but it's another highway that intersects I-95 through Philadelphia. Well, they blocked off 676 at one point. And it was right off the 95 exit. And the police came by and they weren't playing around. You know, they want to get out of the street, so they started spraying them with whatever the smoke bombs, whatever, so they clear the highway. I mean, you know, you can't block a highway. There's ambulances that could be coming through. You know what I mean? Like, I get you want to protest and stuff, but like, you could be interrupting somebody having a life I don't know, altering situation. You know what I mean? They could die if they don't get to the hospital quick enough. And well, these people, they turned around
and they sued the Philadelphia Police Department for spraying them with smoke bombs to get them off 676, which is international. It's an I-676, which is a interstate highway. So I mean, you just can't make this shit up, really. I mean, we had more done to us on January 6th, and like, we got demonized and had all of our rights taken from us and thrown in jail, solitary confinement, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no. And if you're not, unless you look into the situation and go and find out for yourself, you would never know it all kicked off when the police started spraying the crowd with bullets. They shot 5 or 6 people in the face, like in the neck or face. In that first round. Josh Black, another one, I think his name is Michael something.
I mean, with the pellet gun, right?
One of them the bullet went straight through the lip, straight through the top of his mouth. You see a hole in his face. And then Josh Black, who I haven't had a chance to interview yet, I spoke to him on the phone the other day. Like, I would post his story all the time. Imagine if it was a Black Lives Matter rally or anything like that, to see a bullet piercing somebody's face. Okay, it was a rubber bullet. And you know better than I do, Zach, like on the label of those, whatever firearms they were using, it says that this could cause death, right?
Yeah.
If your camera went out, it's back. And I gotta say,
I'll have a couple technical difficulties here.
The worst thing about it, though, Zach, like, we need a complete overhaul of the judicial system. This has been a judicial coup. That's why you say, oh, these folks get this over here and we get this over here, because these judges are like a mafia, and then the lawyers who work for them are part of it. And like, they're all in this culture of corruption with no checks and balances. About to put President Trump in jail. If he didn't win the election, he'd be sitting in prison too.
Yeah,
so like, how do we fix that, people? Like, how?
You're right. And like, I remember with the judges, for example, when the early days of the January 6th arrests, I was in prison early, obviously, but we were all like appealing the constitutionality of the 1512 charge. And I remember all the judges unanimously released all of their denials in, like, I think it was like December of 2021 or something like that. And I read every single one of their opinions. I read all of their opinions. Like, I was very on top of my case. I was very on top of other people's cases. I wanted to see patterns and see what was going on and why we were being denied due process, because it was driving me crazy. Like, when I was denied bail, like, they weren't accusing me of anything at all except for just walking into the building and walking out. And I wasn't even charged with sedition yet or anything, and it was just like, I was so blown away. I was like, there's murderers who get out on bail all the time. And like, all I did was go to a friggin' protest and walk around. And like, I don't understand, how am I denied bail? So like, I was just constantly on top of everything. And when I was reading these opinions by the judges, they were all practically like the same. It looked like they copied and pasted off each other for their opinions and everything. And it just shows how colluded they are. Like, these judges don't think for themselves. Like, it's groupthink with them. Like, they all work together, especially in DC. DC is called a swamp for a reason, and it's just like all the judges, they come from the same schools. They go through the same prosecutor's office, and they end up becoming a judge. So if you either become a lawyer or you become a prosecutor, but prosecutors are lawyers. And then at some point, either the defense or the prosecutor, they become a judge, but they all stay in DC, and it would seem like Judge Kelly, a lot of times, like, he would sit there and he would hear arguments between the prosecution and the lawyers, and he'd be like, he just brushed it off to the side, like, all right, well, we'll talk about this later or something like that. Like, what do you mean later? Like, you're supposed to talk about that here, and like, he'd come back the next morning and just deny all of our emotions right off the bat. So it's like, they went away, they had a conversation.
Like, the first days of your trial, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, to just witness that, to observe. Yeah. Like, Judge Kelly issued that litmus test to the jurors. It was doomed right there. Like, how is that remotely? Like, oh, did you ever attend a Black Lives Matter protest? So a potential juror says, yeah, of course. If a women's march, yes, of course. What do you think about the Proud Boys? They're a group of white supremacists. you get to sit. You get to sit. You're on the jury. Perfect. Just what we're looking for. And of course, that was all the DC residents, which have a 92% voting rate for Joe Biden and voted for Kamala the same rate or whatever it is. Like, and then you talk to Democrats in the streets, like all the people from the stupid people who don't know why they show up to the Women's March. They're like, yeah, just hate Trump. That's your jurors.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. And like that was just the story of the whole trial. I mean, shoot, like I'll never forget that. I took notes every day, the jury trial. I mean, the jury selection, I'm sorry. And it was like these people would say some egregious stuff about the Proud Boys. Like, oh, well, what do you think about the Proud Boys? And I remember the one woman was just like, oh, I think they're so horrible. They need to be thrown under the prison. And it was like, wow, okay. And the judge doesn't dismiss her. He goes, well, do you think you could be fair and impartial for this trial? Besides, put your strong hatred for these men aside and just be fair and impartial for this trial. 9 out of 10 times, like these people would with a smirk on their face, they'd be like, yeah, I can be fair and impartial. And they're sitting there thinking, I'm going to fry these bastards. Every single one of them.
Wait, Zach, there's another part. And I wrote this in an article too at the time, or at some point during a trial. This was the most pathetic part of it. Like there's too many pathetic parts of it. Mm-hmm. But the jurors were all masked. We had no idea what they looked like. And then as soon as the jurors left the room, the prosecutors took their mask off. Not only did one of them take their mask off, but he's always like chewing on his pen, just like disgusting. And as soon as they came back in the room, the prosecutors put their mask on, where the defense side never wore a mask. I went to another courtroom. One of the prosecutors, I was like, because your courtroom was locked. And I was going to go see another J6ers trial because every case in the courthouse was a January 6er. And I remember it was like President Trump's room too in that whole courthouse. Mm-hmm. And so I went in there and I didn't have a mask. And nobody had a mask, but the petty marshal person, she's tapping her face, staring at me with hatred. And I felt bad. I looked around, I'm like, wow, nobody's here for this J6er. Like, this is something from the vampire age of the 1600s. And of course, she kicked me out of the courtroom for not wearing. I immediately was like, oh, let me put on my mask. I'm like, I'm not putting on. He's not wearing a mask. He's not wearing a mask. He's not wearing a mask. What kind of charade was this? What it was pure mind control, pure psychology, experimenting on human psychology and getting away with it because we had a populace that was just doesn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do except write articles. Yeah.
And write articles you did. You wrote a lot of articles. And I thank you for that. I mean, there was one person who was, the most consistent person for helping out a lot of J6ers, myself and my co-defendants included. Whenever we needed a story to get out there to help expose some of the things they're doing, you were ready and willing to do so. And I thank you for that. And, you put one out recently about some of the text messages between FBI agents that came out, during our whole pretrial regarding me. Basically the FBI was hell-bent on not trying to prove a case against me, but trying to financially break me and my family and, just make everything about my life and my wife's and my children's lives as hard as possible. So that way I would plead guilty. Now,
it was appalling to read. They put a tracking device on your wife's friend's car. Mm-hmm. And you can read the article at WorldNet Daily. And it's on your Twitter, Zach. And then
I have it pinned.
They tried to plant evidence so that your wife was having an affair when she wasn't. They're in their text messages saying, "Oh, I hope his house forecloses. Let's make sure we ban all of his wife's Venmo accounts and PayPal accounts. I can't believe he raised $30,000, but he lost it. And if we finally might get enough evidence to come up with a seditious conspiracy." Plant evidence on him for seditious conspiracy because there was no evidence. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got this 1776 document that the DOJ created that could help us frame them of seditious conspiracy. And this is why I go back to the GOP and us sycophanting around these people the TV tells us to like. I'm sorry, President Trump doesn't pick the best people sometimes in his administration. That's not he's a great president, but these people working for him, come on. Like, come on. We need impeachment hearings for these judges. Number one, right? And all of these Biden holdovers in the DOJ and the FBI. The whole Steve Jensen thing, getting a promotion after you orchestrated the whole January 6th prosecutions. The system's still there, festering, waiting for the next Democrat to take office. So it's an Armageddon again.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and unfortunately, I wish things could move quicker. The Jensen thing, I know a lot of people are mad about that one. I know some people might not like my response on this one, but I'm trying to be positive on this in a sense. But I said well before Trump even won the election, I would tell people, if Trump wins, there's going to be a lot of, because I witnessed firsthand how much law breaking the DOJ did just against all J6ers. So like they kept doubling down on breaking the law against us because they never thought that Trump would get back in office. So I was saying, if Trump wins, there's going to be a lot of FBI agents that are going to get fired, but there's going to be a lot of FBI agents that are like right on the cusp of retirement, and they're going to flip. They might turn into whistleblowers. Now, I'm not saying Jensen is. I have no idea. But I'm saying he's up there in age. He's probably a little bit closer to retirement than he's not closer to retirement. I hope that he's doing something good that's actually helping these guys advance their agenda. And I hope it's not more like, it's 2016. Trump was learning a lot about, these agencies. He didn't know a lot about the agencies and whatnot, so they took advantage of him. But he had an additional 8 years to figure this out. And he got a lot of good allies on his side to help really make some actual impactful changes. And, I don't, it's only been 3 months. I don't want to, give up on them yet. You know what I mean? Cash Patel and Bongino, they've been real good for the MAGA for years now. And, they just recently said within the last couple of days that, look, we're doing things. You're not seeing things yet, but things are happening. And
hey, the judge was arrested today.
2 of them were arrested in 24 hours. So, I mean, hey, that's never happened. You know what I mean? And
I don't remember the last time that's happened. You're right.
But you know what else? But you know what else has never happened? We never had federal judges breaking federal law either, like that. Like, that's crazy what these judges are doing. Like, we literally have federal judges breaking federal immigration law and evading literally the FBI on criminals that they're trying to apprehend. Like, what clown world do we live in right now? It's absolutely crazy. Like, but anyway, so
I think also to your point, Zach, there's just too much to be grateful for. And I can go back to, like, when I shifted my mindset 20 years ago from being a left-wing anarchist by default to today. And the way to cultivate confidence and to better your life is to focus on what you're grateful for. And, there's still challenges ahead for sure. But the fact that you're sitting in front of me doing a podcast when I could say about, 15 or 20 months ago, I was sitting in the same spot waiting for you to call me from the DC gulag after you got sentenced and figuring out how the hell we're going to get you guys out of there.
Yeah.
And like praying and like literally just, it was so traumatic to sit here and like know you guys were in that 6x8 cell in the Alexandria detention facility eating a rotten apple or a sandwich with a worm in it and like getting out of your cell for 15 minutes and make a phone call real quick.
The worm was dessert in the BOP. Like, I mean,
huh?
But the worm was dessert in the BOP. I mean,
and your friend was a rat. The only one to talk to probably was a rat. Like, probably. I don't mean that like maybe it was an actual Fed rat, but like that's another thing about this whole thing. The infiltration of our systems by feds and everybody thinking someone else is a Fed. Zach, so you know from the beginning how I started showing up and my whole organic story being involved in this. I've been called a federal honeypot or whatever it is so many times it's absurd. But the government did infiltrate conservative media in the ground that day with federal actors And of course, the Proud Boys were infiltrated by feds.
Absolutely, and that's another thing that I wish people would read more history books, because everybody wants to point fingers at each other on, oh, you're a Fed, da da da, or you're this or you're that or whatever. But people don't understand how deep the FBI they dig their claws in all kinds of movements. They've been doing it since the 50s and 60s. If you look up COINTELPRO, it's basically a surveillance program by the FBI back in the 50s and 60s. They infiltrated all the political groups. It was Students of Democratic Society, which is basically the communists back then. There was the Black Panthers, obviously, and then there was a couple of right-wing groups that I don't remember exactly what they're called, but all those groups were infiltrated by the FBI. And a lot of the things that the FBI does is they don't just investigate crimes most of the time. They create it. So they'll bait people into saying things, or they'll bait people into doing things, and then when they do it, they say it, they go, gotcha, and then they prosecute them for crimes, or they blast it in the media and demonize these groups. A lot of these groups in our history weren't bad groups. It's just that they were so heavily infiltrated by FBI, who wanted to make themselves appear more relevant than they actually are, and they would stir the pot and create crimes. So when I was sitting on the witness stand, for example, like, we weren't even allowed to talk about the CHSs, aka FBI informants, but 9 out of 10 times, the people who made outrageous comments in our group chats turned out to be informants, and we weren't allowed to say that at trial. So we had to just sit there and keep our mouths shut while the government's saying, "Oh, well, this person said this over here, and we don't have any proof that you condemned this," and told them that it was just like, what?
Judge Kelly had sealed hearings about the CHSs. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the FBI agent, Nicole Miller, sent the documents, all of her text exchanges, to the defense by accident, basically. And they had them destroy the evidence. You can see in those emails on the article we posted, your emails that we posted about the FBI agent's correspondence, her saying, "Oh, my boss asked me to destroy like 30,000 pieces of evidence," or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just
and it's crazy, just with that knowledge alone. I wish more people on the right, like, were kind of aware of some of the things that we're up against. There's a lot of infighting on the right. I'm not gonna, and it's not like relegated to just J6 stuff. I mean, it's just like a lot of people on the right, they're not as used to being involved politically as the left is. So, like, when you have like these informants, whatever, stirring the pot, it starts to cause paranoia, and a lot of people start like basically just talking a lot of trash on each other, and it's unfortunate, because like you don't have to focus on every single thing everybody on the right does. There's going to be people on the right that you disagree with, and that's fine. You can just scroll past it. You don't have to hyperfixate yourself on what that person's doing. I mean, like, literally, just look at the left. I'm not saying do what the left does at all, by any means. But do you hear any Democrat congressperson condemn anything that's going on with all this Tesla stuff? No. Not saying that that's something good, but I'm just saying the Tesla stuff's horrible, and I don't think anybody should ever do that. But the right needs to come together, and that doesn't mean that we need to be friends with each other. It doesn't mean that we need to talk to each other, but we need to stop fighting with each other, and we need to stop pointing fingers at each other. And that's just my 2 cents on it.
No, but that's also by design. In fact, some of the people we have issues with, they're controlled opposition. And then you find out, no one talked about Julie Kelly, for example. I mean, as far as most of the mainstream media and how she's donating to Democrats. But besides the point, Zach, and she's a top J6 reporter who's donated the most in her county to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I don't know how the two go together to be a J6 advocate and to give all your money to Democrats. But besides that point, Zach, and I'll just leave that as there's controlled opposition here. So you go here and go no further. Like, she's the only person who's allowed to talk about the pipe bomb situation. Mm-hmm. So transcend all this division. We have no choice but to, because we need to unite. And not just the right unite, like the right and the left, you need to unite against tyranny. Politics, as important as it is, like, put it aside. on a human level and stop hating one another, and transcend this racial politics, Marxism that's been plaguing this country throughout its history. I think that's the time now. I think January 6th, I brought a Black Lives Matter leader to advocate for you guys. While talking about the prison situation. And once he heard about the prison situation and the police brutality, he was like, yes, I stand with you guys. It was just that simple, though, right? Like, unite.
All it takes is talking sometimes. And all it takes is talking sometimes. You're right. And like, and I know that firsthand. Like, I was in Philadelphia when I was doing rallies in Philly. I remember, like, a lot of the times, this one rally we had, it was the Proud Boy March we did through Center City, Philadelphia. And we're walking down Market Street. I'll never forget. It was cool, but like everyone has just assumed that everybody on the left hates the Proud Boys, for example. And, BLM was no different. It was a BLM group marching down the street opposite of us. We were walking like that. And one of the police officers was like, do you guys want to turn? You guys want to keep going straight? We're like, let's keep going straight, whatever. And we're walking past this group, and they're all, they got BLM and everything. They have these banners up, and there's two guys holding their fists up, like, Proud Boys, we support you. And we're like, all the Proud Boys went nuts. They're like, yeah, fuck yeah, hell yeah, all right, and that's because a lot of the events that I went to, if BLM showed up because they wanted to like protest the cops or something like that or whatever. For example, there was this FOP event in Northeast Philly. Mike Pence showed up, a bunch of Proud Boys went. Bunch of other people went, but BLM went to protest the cops. But after the rally was over, the BLM came over and just talked with us. The BLM protesters came over just to talk. We BS'd over politics and this and that. At the end of the day, we ended up agreeing on a lot of stuff. We shook hands and we walked in separate directions. You know what I mean? That's all it takes sometimes. It's just talking, reaching out an olive branch and talking to the other side.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if I wasn't so ostracized by the people I know and love, like, I lost best friends when I decided I'm going to vote Republican. I was always ridiculed by the professors, like I said, sparring with them. Family members always saying you're brainwashed, kicked out of restaurants or bars or whatever group I was with over a simple debate. I don't hate these people, but the ideology of the left is predicated in fascism and is being pumped out intentionally. Because if we unite as Americans, there's really nothing that can stop us. Like, this tyranny doesn't get to go and fester the way it does and conglomerate the way it does if people were to, first of all, look for the truth for yourself. Like, go out, like, stop acting like you know it all. Stop just saying, like, having all this ego and always trying to be smart. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to be like, I'm stupid. I don't know. I'm dumb. I don't know anything. That's the best place to be, to go and actually better yourself. It's the ego also that's pumped in our system too. We get a little off topic here, but it's really the core of the problem. All this narcissism, ego, everybody acting like they know, and they just bandwagon along, even if they're going through college, to go up and become another timid Judge Kelly, to be another petty tyrant, and then they get a little bit of power, it gets to their ego, and they get to make the decisions over your fate in your life. This is an epidemic. Yeah,
no, I agree. It really is, and I think we've made strides, honestly, recently, and I think all the pushback has to do with a lot of people waking up to that. So, I mean, I think stuff like these conversations are good. I think as long as more people continue to really like look at both sides and maybe we really can come together as Americans, because like I said, there's three struggles of power, and all I care about is America and the U.S. Constitution. I think it's the last document on this planet that gives us the rights as human beings to be able to do the things that we can do over here, and it's been under attack for a long time. And, I truly believe that President Trump has good intentions in his heart to restore a lot of those rights to us. And that's why I advocate for the man, because I believe in him, and he might not be putting all the right people in place all the time. Nobody's perfect, but I hope people look outside the box a little bit more. Maybe turn off CNN once in a while, listen what the other side has to say, and go from there. So, but this crossing the hour mark here now, so I don't want to.
I wanted to leave it on a positive note.
What's that?
I wanted to leave it on a positive note and talk about unity. We are the United States, right? I call America a miracle. Don't talk about it, be about it.
Exactly. So where can we keep up with you at? You got a new Twitter page? Doing anything new? Any new shows?
Yeah, I'm actually working on the J6 stuff. Led to somehow my old Twitter account being suspended. I'm at Alicia Powe Show on X, and my breaking news reporter at rifttv.com. Also writing exclusive stories at worldnetdaily.com. And Zach, I'm sure you'll be on my show or interview soon, and I'll be back to talk with you soon. So please follow me, since y'all need followers these days. But don't be a follower.
Sounds good. And thanks again for coming on here. I appreciate it. I hope to have you on again. It's been fun. I'm sure we could have went for another hour real easy, but it's the first show, so I don't want to go too much over the hour. So and plus it's Friday. Go have a drink.
Zach, I'm so happy to have you. I'm still happy you're home. I'm still happy you're home.
So is my wife and my daughters. So am I, and we're all loving it here. So, but again, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna have a final word here, and then I'm gonna shoot this show over. All right. So
good night and God bless, or good morning, whenever you guys watch this.
God bless.
Later, Zach.
Later. Oh, there you go. That's what I want to do. Okay. So anyway, thanks for everybody for coming on. And following and everything. I appreciate it. This is obviously my first show here. So, not everything perfect, but had a couple technical difficulties, but nothing serious. You might not even notice, but, I want to keep bringing on guests. I want to see some of the things that I'm knowledgeable about. So I want to touch on a little bit things like that, a little bit more deep, and maybe have some more J6ers come on, talk about their experiences, and educate the public on just a little bit more about how the justice system has screwed other people as well. And like I said, I met a lot of inmates who went through a lot of struggles and everything, and I'd like to share some of their experiences at some point, but I'd also like to get some other people in here who might be able to share some things that they might have heard from other inmates as well. But I also I like talking history. We're going to talk about some of the things regarding the Democrat Party a lot, and their ties to communism over the years. A lot of people don't really realize that there's actually a big connection there. So I just want to educate the public a little bit on that. So hopefully some people will be interested in topics like that. But other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this today. You can obviously follow me down here at Zach Rehl on X, and I'll have this on Rumble. It's at Zach Rehl as well. And if anybody wants to help out with any of our legal funds, because obviously I'm still fighting my case. We got our case commuted, not pardoned, so we're still fighting in the Court of Appeals in the DC circuit. Unfortunately, have a lot of lawyers on this. We're fighting civil cases too. So you go to defendzac.com and help out any way you can there. Appreciate it, and hope to see you all soon. So again, thanks for coming around. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you again soon. So